when we're testing for gameness, there's certain limitations to personal protection work. Obviously, we're not going to injure dogs in protection work. That would be unethical. So how is a person going to test for gameness in a bandog type of job set when it would be unethical to put the dogs in abusive situations for personal protection work? And this is where hog hunting comes into play as part of a solution to a game dog test. And right off the bat, I don't want anybody to think that I think hog hunting in general is a game dog test, because it's not. 90% of the time when you go hog hunting, the dog is only engaged for maybe like 5 minutes. A lot of the time, not all the time, maybe 5, 10, maybe even 15 minutes. So, those are generally speaking not game tests. Plus, the hog can kill a dog very quickly. And so if a dog gets cut and hurt, that's also, generally speaking, not a game test, even if the dog remains engaged. The game test is going to include many types of stressors. The dog may be injured, the dog may be dominated, the dog may be hot, the dog may be tired, or even worse, the dog has all of those things occurring at once in a real game test. And so 90% of the time, you're not going to see all these stressors coming into play in a hog hunt. But occasionally, it does happen. I'll send you a video, and you can put it into this video if you want to, where a dog was hunting in sub-freezing temperatures and it crossed a river. And since it had crossed the river in sub-freezing temperatures, the hunters were not able to get to the dog. They actually had to drive around the river, and it took them over an hour to get there. By the time they got there, the hog was killed by the dog, and the dog was still in hold, laying on the ground, exhausted, while holding the hog by its throat, and it completely killed the hog. It's a pretty impressive video where the dog had fought the hog for over an hour and was able to dispatch the hog on its own. So when you see these type of things, when they rise and you're hog hunting, take note of that dog's performance and know that that dog has given you a glimpse of some game ability, some determination. That's something you're not going to be able to see all the time. Another thing you can do is what's called the pre-exhaustion test. Some sort of hard work on a dog and get it exhausted, and then when it's exhausted, then see if the dog will remain engaged. And this is going to be more of your protection type, because you don't want your dogs to be exhausted when they're working against a hog that they try to kill them. So this is going to be trying to do a game test in a protection situation. Of course, the pre-exhaustion tests like treadmill work or some sort of pole work or something where you're making the dog really exhausted and then taking it back to see if it'll continue to do protective work. That, again, is not really a game test, but it is the beginnings of one, because there's a lot of dogs that will do protection work really well until they're tired, but when they're tired, they won't. And I won't do a test like this with a client's dog, because when you're training a dog to do protection work, you want the dog to reach its full potential. But when you're breeding a dog, you want to know, am I breeding a dog that's willing to work even in an exhausted state? Because ultimately our goal is to produce a game bred bandog. So we have our own dogs in an exhausted state and see if they're still willing to engage when they are exhausted. So that's just another thing to consider. Let's see. Also, it's really important to be honest. He was honest. Don't be kennel blindness. Know the difference between a grip and a slip. If you're hog hunting, if I see that dog bouncing, getting a hold, it's in a good hold, and then it lets go of that hold to get a secondary hold, to back up and then come back in, that is a major no-no. That's a bad sign to me. Now, if it's a slip, an honest-to-God slip, like let's say the dog is running in, and when it's running in, it hits the hog, but it didn't get a good bite on the ear because the hog is moving. And when that ear moves, maybe it just didn't connect with the grip. That's acceptable, because they're not like, always get that perfect grip. But don't make excuses for a dog that's already in hold. It's got a good grip. and then it slips. This is not acceptable for a reliable dog. It's important to be able to see the signs of gameness. Another thing is most of our dogs are about 5/8 game dog, 5/8 American Pit Bull Terrier from working camps, and with a lineage that stayed within working camps. But then, one of my top producers is a dog named Justice. Justice is kind of an anomaly because he is only about 3/8 Pit Bull blood. He's going to be 5/8 Mastiff side. However, he's got some of that Tosa Inu blood coming in, and he's also multiple generations deep. And so we've been breeding him to some females that are like 75% game blood to get those offspring up over the 50, about the 56% mark. So they're going to be a little bit less than 5/8, but pretty close to 5/8 Pit Bull. And he's worked really well for us when we've done that. That's what produced Scratch and Elsa and Bumper. Some dogs I really like. Another dog named Calvin. Then Keaton's got a dog named Agro. They're out of the Justice, bred back to Halo blood, and it's worked really well for us. So, we have some videos of Justice where he was kind of old and kind of fat and not as fast as he is when he was younger. But when you look at his videos when he was in his prime, that dog can move real well. So my point on that is occasionally you will get some dogs that are not super, super, super heavy Pit Bull, and they can still be producers. But if you rely on those dogs with themselves, you're probably going to lose those traits. So you need to make sure to lock that in, you're sticking them back to some dogs that have very high percentages of game blood coming in on them. And to do this, you can consider, or a breeder should consider, is to learn a lot about bloodlines. There's a lot of bloodlines out there that were known for different traits. My favorite blood is going to be Sorrells, Bolio, and Red Boy Jocko Bolio, which that's what's produced Mayday, was Red Boy Jocko Bolio. Why? Because Sorrells, Bolio, and Red Boy were all known for gameness. There's a lot of people that have used Boudreaux blood because it's really popular, or Chinaman blood because it's really popular. And those bloodlines are fine. I'm not trying to disrespect them, but if we're seeking to have gameness in our line, we should look for lines that were known for gameness, like Sorrells blood, the Bolio blood, or the Red Boy blood. The Boudreaux blood was known more for skills, known more for hard mouth. Good-looking dogs with a lot of skills, good-looking dogs with a lot of mouth. But generally speaking, they were not the gamest dogs. And if you go back to the early foundations of some of the Boudreaux dogs, it's not really a surprise. I mean, you can look at what the breeder was doing, and Floyd Boudreaux is a legend in the American Pit Bull Terrier. He was chasing skills, he was chasing mouth, and he was willing to breed to some dogs that had losses in their gameness because they were still very skilled animals. I mean, you look at Bully Sun's sire, what's that dog's name? What was it? Eli and Spook, I think. But anyway, if you look at Eli's sire, Eli's out of a dog named Scrub, and Scrub was a one-time loser who's off of a dog named Blind Billy, who's a one-time loser. That Blind Billy was bred to his daughter, and then that dog was bred back to Blind Billy. Then the granddaughter was bred back to Blind Billy, and then the great-granddaughter was bred back to Blind Billy. They did that 4 times to produce the dog Scrub. And Blind Billy and Scrub were both losers, but they were dogs with skills. So gameness may have been lacking in that line. Boudreaux built his foundation off of that. And so, if you want to see game-bred Bandogs, I really recommend that you stick with lines that were known for gameness, like the Sorrells, the Bolio, and the Red Boy. And then Mayday, of course, was a legendary dog because that dog was kind of like a complete package. He had skills, he had size, he had gameness, apparently. He was a big old boy. He was Red Boy Jocko Bolio, Red Dog. Oh, and Jocko is known for gameness as well.
Mm. So you said if somebody were to purchase a dog from you and then want to train that dog, you wouldn't want to push that dog and make it exhausted first?
If it's a dog from our breeding program, I'm okay with it if they're interested in breeding the dog. If you, let's say you have a Doberman Pinscher, though, and you come here for protection work, I'm not going to push that dog. I'm going to develop the dog and baby the dog and take it to its full potential, because that's not my dog, and it's not my job to do a breed suitability test with their dog. It's my job to train that dog to be a protection dog. If they have a dog from our program and they want to breed it, then at some point that dog needs to pass some pretty serious tests. That's something else that needs to be expanded on. If a dog does not know what to do, and the dog backs up and is analyzing a situation, that is much less concerning to me than the dog that does know what to do. Like, let's say you have a dog that starts off really good, but then one day when things get tough, it quits. That bothers me. If you have a dog that, when it's young, it doesn't start up. It just kind of stands there kind of cold, not running away, but not engaging, kind of impartial. And when the pressure's coming its way, it doesn't run away, but it's like almost confused. And then one day it clicks and the dog is really, really good. I'm okay with that. So like, let's say you take a dog and you take it hog hunting, and the first time it runs up to a hog, it's like maybe barking or smelling or just doesn't really bite. A lot of people might say, that's a terrible dog. Don't know until it bites. If the dog bites or if the dog runs away in fear, then yeah. Let me rephrase. If the dog runs away in fear, then yeah, that's not a good dog. If the dog bites and then quits, it's not a good dog. But if the dog that hasn't bit yet, I want to see what happens after the dog knows what to do. It's kind of like a cur is a dog that quits. A cold dog is a dog that hasn't started. And a game dog is a dog that started and remained engaged. Obviously, the game dog is the one that you want. A cold dog is not what you want, but it's also not a cur. A cur dog is a dog that started and quit. That's the one you want to stay away from, is the cur dog. You know, a cold dog, just keep working it and see if it starts. Don't force it to do it, but give it the opportunity to learn. And once it's learned what to do, then if it quits, then yeah, don't use that dog. But if the dog never learns what to do, don't use that dog. I don't want to breed the cold dogs. But I'll give that dog plenty of chance to learn what to do. So in closing, basically, to produce what I've produced has taken me 30 years of study, over 20 years of selective breeding, produced 1,000 dogs basically during that time. And by continually selecting for the best and the best and looking for the traits, I've eventually produced what I've got. And some people might find it hard to believe that it exists, but in the future, we look forward to showing it to the world. And they'll see it's possible. It's not impossible, it's possible.